to find a career to which you are adapted by nature and then to work hard at it is as close and near to a formula for success and happiness as the world provides.
But is that not a factual reality? If I'm poor, I'm poor.
Now,
if I'm born in a township, I'm born in a township.
Here's the thing now. That's a reality. But that reality can be changed. It doesn't mean that because something happened yesterday, then today is going to be the same thing. Life is not like that. When you see yourself as a victim, remember yesterday is past. You can learn from that. So, but victors are those people who are saying, okay, that reality happened. So how do I change my fate? How do I change my destiny? Because your destiny is not the place that just awaits you there. But your destiny is linked to your daily actions. So you can learn the techniques, you can nurture the techniques, but if you don't have it at you, you're not going to do it as best or as good as someone who has it, naturally. Like I'm a people's person. I don't fake it, and I didn't go to school for it. No one taught me. It's something that's in me. That's nature. But when you learn to communicate and you learn to work with people and you learn to express your ideas and your views, guess what happens? It means the environment now, that's where nature comes in because it can be taught. There are things that can be taught that are learnable, and there are things that you are born with, but they are raw, like a diamond.
In your line of work, you do a lot of polishing of diamonds.
Absolutely.
Right? So you do coaching, you do mentorship.
Yes, I run workshops because I'm all about, so when you think of Veli Ndaba, the NeuroEngineer, I'm all about transforming minds from a place of mental darkness to mental light.
One more week, one more episode of the Professionals Network podcast with myself, Theo Mapheto. This is the podcast where we say what we like and we like what we say. We bring you professionals from all walks of life. Bring you people from accountancy, from law, from medicine, and every walk of life that you can think of. Today I have a big brother of mine, an author, a speaker. What else? The too many titles. His name is Veli Ndaba. My brother, welcome aboard.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me, Theo. It's a pleasure.
I'm hoping that this is the first of many, of these installments that we're going to have.
I believe so.
Yes.
Yes, I truly believe so.
How does an engineer end up being a speaker, being an author, being a coach?
Wow. That's an exciting question that I get to be asked, I think, quite often as well. And I think the best way to answer it is by saying, you are not your qualification. I was not born an engineer, but it's something that I studied. So the ability to study something, it tells you that you can also study something else. I think what we tend to do is to define ourselves by our qualifications. And I think for me today, as a life coach and a business coach, I get to meet a lot of people who are, like lawyers, who are doctors, who are accountants, who come to me. They are so unhappy, with their careers, but they feel they are stuck. So I think one thing that I firstly say to them is, you are not your qualification. So life is about self-discovery. As you live this life, you tend to discover more about yourself than you ever thought. Because remember, when you choose a career, you're only 18 years old.
Yes.
And you don't know anything about life. You are just choosing based on, on some financial rewards that you know about that career, or you've heard about it. So I think for me, I became honest to myself. I discovered myself along the way. And I think that's how I therefore became some sort of, I find myself doing different things today instead of doing sort of like being one thing, saying I'm an engineer. I'm a human being, and I think before I'm anything else.
You know what struck me when I walked into your office? There's this banner which talks about inspiration.
Yes.
inspiration is key in your life, is it not?
Very much so, because hence I talk about life is about self-discovery. Because whenever I did something, or being in a career, there was always this lurking question to say, Veli, is this it? So whenever you do something, after a while, the question comes, is this really it? About life. And then you know that there's something more that you need to do. But to live life, you've got to be inspired. And I think for me, inspiration is big, because without anything that inspires you, you'll always be mediocre. Inspiration is the drive. It is the drive that drives you, to discover more about yourself than you can ever begin, that you can ever begin to imagine. So inspiration is the source and is the drive for you to become the best human being that you can be.
How does one find inspiration, though?
Inspiration is found when you are searching. Inspiration is found when you are experimenting, when you start to see life as an experiment, dabbling in different things. And it's like when you are searching for something, you can tell that, wow, I think I love it here. Oh, I think it's warm here. I think it's cold there. I don't want to play there.
Yes.
So it's about when you are seeking for something. You only find something when you search. That's why even when you look at the Bible, I think it's Matthew 7 verse 7. It says, "Ask and you shall." Ask. It says, "Seek and you shall find," and it says, "Ask and you shall." You're gonna get answers, and it says, "Knock, and it shall be open unto you." So it means all the findings are reserved for the seekers. You must seek for you to find. Otherwise, you won't find anything if you don't seek. So same thing as inspiration. Inspiration is found when you experiment, in life, when you seek, when you search. And I think for me, it was through reading and being honest to myself. When you know that you are not happy where you are, try to find out where else are you going to be happy? Where else can you be happy? When you engage with different people, you read different material, and you'll tell that I think I love it here. And that's it. Don't let yourself be defined by this qualification or by this paper that you get from varsity or from any institution of higher learning, because you miss yourself. It's about you. I love the words of Mark Sullivan.
Yes.
Mark Sullivan said, to find a career to which you are adapted by nature and then to work hard at it is as close and near to a formula for success and happiness as the world provides. And given or granted that the right career has been found, hard work ceases to exist. So we've got to be honest with ourselves. We've got to keep on searching and finding and asking questions about ourselves. Because once you find something that naturally comes to you, something that you do, where you apply that effortless effort, I tell you, you become something else. You become just joyful like I am.
Jeez.
Because it means you have connected with your true self. So most people are not connected with themselves. Once you connect with that natural power, with that natural ability, then the rest becomes easy. Hence I'm talking about effortless effort.
Yes.
You apply that, but to you, you lose sense of time when you do it. And you wonder and say, wow, it's 10 hours gone already. And it looks like an hour. But if you hate it, the formula is flipped around. 10 hours, to me, 10 hours become like 1 hour.
Yes.
To others.
Because you love what you do.
Yes, to others. And not only just love, I love it, but also it loves me back. It means I'm naturally have that energy. I'm naturally given that sort of like the mind for it. But if you're doing something that doesn't like you, guess what happens? An hour looks like 10 hours, and it feels like 10 hours. So it's about that ratio. So to find that inspiration and to find yourself, you always have to go back and look at yourself and say, what is it that I do it, and whenever I'm engaged in it, I lose sense of things and lose sense of time. And people say, wow, are you still doing this?
Yes.
And you say, yes. And to you, it's like you've only just started.
Yes.
So that's how, because life is about searching. Life is about seeking. You can't just sit and hope for the best. It doesn't work like that.
But there could be somebody in a similar position doing exactly the same thing, but they are not as inspired as you are. What's the difference? Does that speak to perspective?
It may talk to perspective, that's one element, but the second one is they are not, because I look at it as a spectrum or a continuum. You may do something, we may do the same thing, but your level of engagement in that may be an 8. Mine might be a 10. Someone else may be a 4. That's the reason why, therefore, when you are put in one classroom and they say, we're going to do mathematics.
Yes.
We're in the same class, we're taught by the same teacher, but the level of connectedness, with what we are doing will make a difference. If you are connected to a level of an 8, that's why you'll have people who are A students in the same thing. Yes. If you are an A student in maths, for an example, it doesn't make you an A student in physics. It doesn't make you an A student in law. It doesn't make you an A student in biology. So it's about the spectrum. In biology, you may be a 4, yes, but in science or in maths, you may be an 8. An 8. Yes. So it comes back to that issue. Perspective, it's a number of issues. And secondly, the connectedness. There are people when they do something and they look like, oh, it's a natural. Yes. But are you really a natural? A natural is when someone does something and that seems to be just coming out effortlessly. It means you are connected with that. You don't have to put too much effort, in that. You don't battle with it. But obviously, to be the best in that thing, you need to put more time.
Is it a nature or a nurture thing, though? Is one able to learn those things that you're talking about?
Absolutely. And I like that. And when you talk about nature and nurture, I always try to avoid, when you talk in binary terms, in black and white terms, either or. It's a combination. Because some things, when you talk about nature, we're talking about the genetics. And when you talk about nurture, we're talking about the environment. So these work together. You may actually be genetically good at something. You may be having it. Like if you're a people's person, for an example, you can't go and learn that in school. It's either you have it or not. Now, that's nature. So you can learn the techniques, you can nurture the techniques, but if you don't have it at you, you're not going to do it as best or as good as someone who has it, naturally. Like I'm a people's person. I don't fake it, and I didn't go to school for it. No one taught me. It's something that's in me. That's nature. But when you learn to communicate and you learn to work with people and you learn to express your ideas and your views, guess what happens? It means the environment now, that's where nurture comes in, because it can be taught. There are things that can be taught, that are learnable, and there are things that you are born with, but they are raw, like a diamond. If you think of a diamond, it doesn't make it clean. You don't get it clean. Unpolished. It's there, but when you get it unpolished, it's not as valuable as when it's polished. Yes. So it has to be polished. It must be taken and be put through those different tests, and trials and tribulations.
In your line of work, you do a lot of polishing of diamonds.
Absolutely.
So you do coaching, you do mentorship.
Yes, I run workshops, yes, because I'm all about, so when you think of Veli Ndaba, the NeuroEngineer, I'm all about transforming minds from a place of mental darkness to mental light. So it means I help people transform from this place of mental darkness, which is the lack of knowing and the lack of connectedness with themselves, and to a place of mental light where our dreams are at. When you know better about yourself, when you are self-aware, or when your level of self-awareness is high, then it means that you're in mental light. So I help people to understand this because there are so many things that we get told about in the world which are not true. Mm-hmm. So I had to go back because my mind is always inquisitive. I always ask myself questions, understanding that I studied engineering as one of the, the qualifications that are required, which is about the ability to think, which is the ability to question things.
Yes.
And then I wanted to understand exactly how the brain works, because the brain is the seat of all our behavior.
The brain is the seat of all our conduct,
you say? It's the seat of all our conduct. It's the seat of all our thoughts. It's the seat of all our habits. So it means this is the driver. And like you know of a story of a slave and a master.
Yes.
We always try to understand the slave without understanding the master. So I wanted to go back and understand the master, because the master is the one that decides. So in this instance, the brain is exactly what it does. So when we hear people talking about, for an example, you can't teach an old dog new tricks,
Yes.
which means that once you become this old, it means it's a situation of you accepting who you are. But looking at the thing of neuroscience and looking at the study, human evolution, I realized that no, that's not true. And also the science has revealed that you can learn until you die. And there's a terminology or a phenomenon that is known as neuroplasticity that I get to teach about in workshops when I talk about leaders and teams. When you talk about neuroplasticity, you're talking about the fact that the brain is plastic.
Yes.
The brain is forever changing based on use. How you use it will determine how the brain is going to be like. That's why there's also a phenomenon that states that if you don't use it, you lose it. So that's what I talk about. So for me, when I coach people, it's not just coaching people about, just believe in yourself.
Yes.
Just say yes to your life.
Yes.
That's just so tired to me. But I apply science behind that, which is something that is rare in the world, because I realize that without understanding the brain, then we don't understand human behavior. Because everyone is just talking about whatever they think is true. Or I think like. I don't want to talk about just what I think like. I want to talk about what is proven, something that we have data for, something that we have, evidence for. So with the brain, we've got functional magnetic resonance imaging, which is fMRI scans. We've got encephalogram, which is EEG. We've got the BOLD, which is bold, the blood oxygenation level dependent, scanning and technology. That gets to tell us exactly what's happening in the brain. So that's how deep that I've gone with it. But I simplify that when I talk to audiences and I talk to people about how to understand themselves, how to change the human behavior. And therefore, that's where we're talking about polishing people's careers, polishing people's thoughts, getting people to move from a place of mental darkness to mental light. That's what I'm passionate about.
When you're moving from mental darkness to mental light, as you put it, what role does self-awareness play?
It's very important. Self-awareness actually is the one that makes you realize. Because whenever I do my talks and I do coaching and I do my workshops, my talks are based on three things. I call this model of mine DDI. So it means when I deliver a talk, it has to do three things. And when I tell my story, it has to do three things. The first one is to distract people from the limitations or the limiting beliefs and the limiting stories that they tell about themselves. If someone tells themselves that I'm black, for an example, or I'm not
poor.
educated, I'm poor, it means I'll never get there. You accept that as your fate. It means I need to distract you from that. And how do I do that? For an example, if I tell of a story of someone who, like the Nelson Mandelas, someone who was incarcerated for so many years, you're talking about 20 years, 27 years, but they came out to be in charge of their lives. They came out to come and do greater things. So now it means if one person could do that, so it means it's possible for you too. So when I see someone who has done something, who has achieved something as great as that, who started off at a worse off position than you, but ended up getting at a higher level than anyone could ever begin or can ever begin to imagine, to me, that is not an exceptional life. That person was not just an exception, but it was just an example of what is possible for us too. So from that perspective, then you can get to understand that when I tell a story of someone who started at a very lower level to the highest level, now I'm trying to distract you from listening to that story to say, I started here, it means I'll never get there. You start to realize and say, wow, it means it's possible. So my stories and my workshops and my talks about bringing in possibility. Now that's part of self-awareness. That's the first thing,
yes.
Self-awareness.
Yes.
It's distracting you from that so to say, it could have been worse. That's number one. It could have been worse. Once you say that it could have been worse, then it means you realize that, hey, it's not that bad. Then the second one is dispute your story. When you look at your story where you are able to say, wow, I can't believe that I've been telling myself this story and limiting myself from so many possibilities in life. And that it raises your level of awareness. Because first of all, I've distracted you from the story that is limiting you, from your own miseries. And then the second one is, I've been able to make you dispute that story and say, oh, I don't want to be associated with that thinking anymore, with that narrative. I think I've been operating in a wrong narrative. That's the second one. Then once you are able to dispute your story, then it means you are now in a fertile ground. I've created that fertile soil for you. That's when now you are ready for me to inspire and empower you. Then I inspire you, empower you. So what people tend to do, they just want to inspire people, and yet they don't help them get distracted from their stories that are limiting them. They don't help them to make them dispute that story, to say, oh, I don't want to be associated. Because the reason why I'm helping you distract you from that story that doesn't help you is because I want you to dispute it and say, no. I can't believe that. How stupid of me if you say that. How could I be saying that? That was so limiting of me to think that I could never do it. I mean, if you think of myself, I could never have thought that I'll author so many books.
Yes.
But it had to start somewhere. Someone distracted me from that story. So when I talk about Les Brown as my mentor, who came among others, who distracted me from that story to say, no, I'm only just a guy from Soweto. I'm just a guy from, who I'm black and I'm this. I never went to Model C schools, for an example. I don't speak with an accent, But I said to myself, no. I'm worthy and I'm good enough to go out and make the difference in the world. So that was a distraction. The second one, once I realized that I was in the wrong place and my thinking wasn't okay, then I started to see that this story, I don't deserve this story that I've been telling myself, and that others have been telling me that I'm not good enough. That was now disputing that story. It's only when you dispute something that you can change it.
Precisely.
If you don't want to associate, I'm telling you, and if I can come and tell you about all the good things and inspire you, but if I do not help you dispute the wrong story that is limiting you, then I'm just not doing any justice. So that's what I do differently. Therefore, when I deliver my talks and even in my writings, I'm challenging people to help them get distracted by seeing something that is worse off than what they actually have.
In one of the talks that you give, you talk about the difference between victimhood and Victorhood.
Absolutely.
As it were.
Absolutely.
How important is that?
That's very crucial. It comes back to that element of self-awareness once again, because every story that is told and every life that has ever been lived on this planet,
yes,
and that is being lived even today,
yes,
it hinges on two things, two positions. The first position is when you tell a story of victimhood, or when you tell a story based on victimhood, where you say, oh, what can you expect of me, having been born in that family, not having this. It's always about seeking pity. It's about people saying, oh, shame, I'm sorry for you.
But is that not a factual reality? If I'm poor, I'm poor.
Now,
if I'm born in a township, I'm born in a township.
Here's the thing now. That's a reality. But that reality can be changed. It doesn't mean that because something happened yesterday, then today is going to be the same thing. Life is not like that. When you see yourself as a victim, remember, yesterday is past. You can learn from that. So, but victors are those people who are saying, okay, that reality happened. So how do I change my fate? How do I change my destiny? Because your destiny is not the place that just awaits you there. But your destiny is linked to your daily actions. So many people, when people arrive at a place, they say, oh, it was his destiny. No.
Yes.
Your destiny is something that you create with your actions.
So you take incremental steps
Absolutely.
Towards your destiny.
Absolutely. That's why I love to say life does not give you what you want, but what you are. So the question is, what are you? You are your habits. Life will give you your consistent actions, which are your habits. So if you want to change your destiny, if you want to change your life, change your habits. Because you can have all the desires and the wishes in the world, you want to do this, but the world will not give you that because they are all linked. Your rewards or your results are linked to your daily actions. That's how it goes. And until you you understand that, then you'll be stuck. Because I don't want to be known as a victim, because there's no statue that was ever erected to a critic or to a victim. But all the statues in the world were erected to men and women, victorhood, which are meant.
Let me understand this. So there's no statue which has ever been erected for a victim.
To a victim. Yeah, absolutely. There's never. Someone ought to say, this one was the best complainer, of note. This one was the best, a pity seeker in the world. There's nothing like that. This world will always reward men and women of substance, those who are able to stand up and go and fight for what they want. And I've just recently written something like a post where I spoke about, it was titled, Thank You for Your Stubbornness. I mean, today we have telephones because of Alexander Graham's Bell stubbornness.
Yes.
Today we've got this iPhone because of Steve Jobs' stubbornness.
Yes.
Today we've got Microsoft because of Bill Gates' stubbornness. These are men, and these men, they said, even when the world was against them, no, what do you think you're doing? Whatever. And because of their stubbornness, so the world is in a better place today.
What are you saying? Are you saying we shouldn't be listening to our naysayers?
No. You know what? Sometimes when you look at it, you need to have some intelligence in you. Sometimes it doesn't mean that you must just block them off, but listen to them, but have a clear understanding of what you are about. Listen to that inner voice of reason within. I love the guy, when you look at someone who was coached, Martin Luther King Jr. had a guy by the name of Howard Thurman.
Yes.
And there was Howard Thurman and there was Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays. But if you look at Howard Thurman, he said, all of us are born with a soft voice inside of us that continuously talk to us and telling us who we are. And if you can ever happen to miss that voice of reason speaking softly within you, you will end up on the ends of the strings that somebody else pulls. It means you're going to live your life as a puppet for someone, failing to listen and to the inner voice, that soft inner voice that tells you who you are. Then you're going to end up being somebody else's puppet. And that's what I said, no.
People like Steve Jobs listen to their inner voice.
Absolutely.
That soft inner voice.
Absolutely.
Despite the criticism, despite the naysayers, you forge ahead.
Definitely. Because it means if you don't listen to that voice, you'll never get to know who you are. That's the only inner voice that you'll have. Because in life, at the end of the day, you will suffer from two pains. There's a pain of discipline, and there's a pain of regret. The pain of discipline is the cheapest pain that you can ever pay, because you've got to pay it in cents every day. 1 cent, you have to, to be disciplined enough to go to the gym, be disciplined enough, just to go there for an hour, disciplined enough to eat well, to eat healthy food, just a little bit. But if you fail to pay that price in cents, it accumulates. It even goes beyond this compound interest. At the end of your life, you're going to pay the price of regret. When you are overweight, when you are not knowledgeable, you don't know most about yourself, when you have not developed yourself, and at the end of the day, you're going to regret that, and you will never fix it, because you will never get to know how things could have turned out to be. You will be saying, I coulda, woulda, shoulda, but it's not. And by the way, it's been found that people who are in their deathbeds are not regretting the mistakes they made, but they are regretting the chances they did not take, because they don't know, and they will never get to know how life could have been had they taken those chances.
In fact, somebody said, if you look at the cemetery, it's full of dreamers, people who dreamt but who never did something about their dreams.
Absolutely. And now that issue, when you talk about that, it's because we failed. That inner voice of reason was too soft that we missed. That's the reason why I wrote this book, Your Dream is Calling You. Now, what I'm saying is,
dream is calling you.
Yes. Most people never hear that dream calling them because there's too much noise around them. Too many naysayers that they give them an airtime that they don't deserve. to be successful. It's a very lonely journey.
And I need us to talk about that because I want us to have a practical sense of what we're talking about. Human beings are social people, right?
Yes.
Social beings, rather.
Yes.
Now, you say the road to success is very lonely.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't want to take that road because it's lonely.
Yes.
You know, you are exposed to your all on your own.
Yes.
How does one navigate that fear? And why are we having that fear, by the way? Why do we have that fear?
Fantastic. That question is actually based on evolution. The brain evolved to evolve, and it adapted to adapt. So the brain is hardwired by evolution to protect us from getting devoured by these saber-toothed tigers. When you look at our historical ancestors, they will actually go out for, to hunt. And there were big animals out there. And for them not to be devoured or to be eaten up by these big cats and big, animals, they had to form these groups. They had to go in groups so that they will protect each other. So because of that fear, when something was like rustling in the in the grass, it will be too late for you just to figure out what it was. You had to run for cover. So now the brain got wired to make sure that you are safe as the number one priority. And number two, to save energy. And then number three, to think. So this is something that I get to. Safety is there to help us survive. Because as human beings, we are here to procreate.
Yes.
So that life can continue. Yes. So if you act in a way that is unsafe, it means that procreation is going to be a problem. Yes. We wouldn't be here if they were not safe.
Yes.
So evolution has hardwired us to be so scared of something that threatens our survival. So when I talk about neuroscience and I talk about how the human brain works, when I teach leaders and I talk about groups and I talk about people, that's what I'm talking about when I talk about self-awareness. Because when I take you through that and then you get to understand how the brain evolved and how it works, then your self-awareness level is going to go up. Now, coming back to the issue of fear, because it gives you an indication that you are now entering a different territory that may actually threaten your survival. Remember, during those days of our prehistoric ancestors, those fears were mainly those big cats and snakes and things like that. But today we hardly see those things. Now we're talking about social fears. This is where now we're talking about social fears. We're talking about things like fear of embarrassment, fear of failure, fear of being ridiculed, fear of being excluded. That's why in workplaces we've got so many issues even in our society. So as social creatures, we are meant to work together. Because when we work together in a team, you feel the sense of support and you feel the sense of belonging. So now, because of that, evolution has set us up at times for failure. That's why I say as well, even in science, it comes out that as human beings, we are not wired to thrive. We are wired to survive. Now, success is connected, is linked with thriving, which is not surviving. So
success is a different dynamic altogether.
So and also based on, because it means you need to be successful, it means you need to do something that is different than most people do.
Something extraordinary.
Something different. Yes. And something extraordinary, but something different. Yes. And now when you do something different, because the brain is saying, hey, you can't be alone. Now, what does that tell you? That's where fear comes in. That's when you need to have a coach and you need to have a mentor. You need to have someone who's going to speak sense to you to say, hey, even yourself, talking to yourself, say, no, but if this thing happens, if they laugh at me, then am I going to die? No, I'm not going to die. Now you're changing the narrative. That's what we call reappraisal. Because to appraise is to give meaning to something. To reappraise is to change the meaning of that thing. So we need to change the meaning that we give to things As a result, when you see something as fearful, when you change the meaning of it, you see it as an opportunity to grow. So something fearful can actually help you to say, no, it just told me to be careful, but it doesn't mean I must stop. You see now, that's the language of the champions. That has to be developed every day to deal with fear, because fear is actually ingrained in us and in our brains as a survival mechanism, not as a way to say stop, but as a way of saying, hey, be careful. So now I'm talking science, but I'm just giving you a little bit of it, but I unpack this.
But I find it interesting. But you're saying, instead of seeing that fear as something that would inhibit you from going further, yes, you should actually use it as a springboard.
Absolutely. And how you talk about things, because you've got to... So what basically happens in there, when you look at the brain, when I teach about this, we've got what is called the limbic system, and it's part of what is called the emotional brain. This limbic system, which processes your emotions, that's the one where you find yourself always running for cover, because it checks for things. In here, we've got something called the amygdala that is always sensing the environment, checking for anything that may sort of like, that may be threatening to a survivor. And it doesn't reason. It's based on evolution. And you find yourself, without even thinking, your heart is already racing.
Yes.
Your eyes are sort of like enlarged.
Yes.
Your focus is
shaking.
more narrowed. You are shaking. And why is that? Because that brain has actually, that amygdala has pushed, your hypothalamus. And the hypothalamus has actually released another chemical that is called CRH, corticotropin-releasing hormone. And that hormone, corticotropin-releasing hormone, is actually released to your pituitary gland, which is known as the master gland, to release something that is called ACTH, which is adrenocorticotropic hormone. And that adrenocorticotropic hormone is released to your kidneys, to your adrenal glands, which then release your cortisol. That's the reason why you become turbocharged, that you can fight. You can hit someone, you can jump something that is so high that you cannot ordinarily jump. So what that means, it means then you've got adrenaline, then you've got cortisol. So those are hormones that are turbocharging you, that make you become stronger and more focused, and it suspends certain actions like your things like your immune system stops to work. And also digestion is suspended, because all that blood and oxygen, and glucose has to be focused on your muscles and on your eyes, and for you to become stronger, and your heart starts beating faster, because it has to, sort of like allow more blood to pass through, because your muscles, they need that blood, because oxygen is there, glucose is there. So, but that's the science that I get to explain. So
I need
for people to understand
I need us to spend more time on this.
So I just want to. So that is something that we are hardwired.
Yes.
For. So it doesn't. You don't choose that. So evolution has chosen that for us. So it's for us, therefore, to understand,
to have the knowledge,
how to deal with this. Yes. Someone once said that there's nothing to be feared, but to be understood. And I just love that. That's exactly that. We fear most things because we don't know about them. I mean, if they say, here's a snake now, just you and I can jump
on top of the table.
But when you have someone who's been trained on how to deal with snakes, they say, where is the snake?
Exactly.
And then they go towards it.
They know how to
handle it. And they say,
no,
they know. So knowledge is quite important, because it helps you to deal with situations the way you have to deal with them. So the reason why we behave the way we do is because we don't understand how the brain works. That's where now this Veli Ndaba NeuroEngineer and leadership effect comes in. Because I help people get to understand as well how this brain works. Because if you don't understand how it works, it's going to rule you. It's going to just be on automatic, on autopilot.
Yeah. So what is Veli Ndaba saying to somebody who wants to write a book? They are fearful of writing it because they don't know whether it's going to be successful or not. Somebody is afraid of changing careers. Somebody is afraid of getting married. And, the examples are innumerable. What is it that you can say to those people to sort of remove the fear or to turn it around? Because I don't think the fear you can completely remove it.
Yes, it's there for a reason. is
there for a
there
reason.
to help us. But there's good fear and there's bad fear. Also in my talks, I talk about such things. There's good fear, there's bad fear. There's good stress and there's bad stress. So whenever people talk about fear, the thinking is there's a bad one. When people talk about stress, it's like a bad one. There's a good stress, because without having stress, you'll never perform at your best. You need that turbocharge, for you to move a bit up.
Keep you in check.
So that's a little bit of stress, but it mustn't be chronic stress. So coming back to the question that you asked, there's something that we call, when I talk to people, especially on coaching, is something that I call prototype life. There's a prototype career as well. This is where you sit down and say to yourself, what do I want? For an example, you want to own a restaurant.
Yes.
If I were to get money, I'll own a restaurant, or I'll own a truck, So the question is, do you know about someone who owns that truck? What are the challenges that are there? What do they go through? What do they enjoy? What don't they enjoy? What's their personality traits? Or
Are
what
you
their
talking
personality
association
type and
here?
whatever?
Are you going to the area of association?
Somehow, that's one element, but the element to it is for you to understand exactly what's involved in that. So that when you talk about restaurant, you go there and volunteer to spend time with someone who owns a restaurant, to get to see what do they do, what a day looks like, what frustrates you, what are the challenges. Can I be able to stand up for these challenges or not? But what we tend to do is we look at people going to school and study something that they have no idea what this thing is all about. How many people talk about they want to be lawyers, others they want to be engineers, but when you ask them, what does engineering, what does it entail? They won't tell you. And I say, do you know of any engineer in your life? Yeah, but they know them at a distance. At a distance. And I'm saying, okay, if you know that person, have you ever sort of like communicate with that person or spend some time with them to find out what is this engineering all about? What do they do on a daily basis? How do they go about their days? Once you understand that and you are with them, you basically, when you talk about job shadowing, you job shadow them.
Are you saying
you go
that
there.
is supposed to be the first step?
That absolutely, that is prototyping. That is where you find that most of these careers, and then you've got career crisis or someone that has chosen something that doesn't work out at the end. They've realized that I don't enjoy this.
Yeah.
This is not me.
It's not meant
because
for
some
me,
of them, the career guidance. There's this thing called career guidance. You know about it, and
It's
people
cool.
talk about it, but people at that time they don't know anything about that. And when you realize that you have made that mistake, it's not like a mistake. See it as an experiment. I've experimented with this life. For an example, I studied engineering. I loved it, but at some point I realized that I think I will never be the best engineer there is. I'm not too connected with this. Maybe I'm connected with this maybe at a 6 or at a 7, but I want something that I'm connected to at a higher level. Because for you to compete in any field, you need to be naturally good at what you do. And that's a fact. It's not about how educated you are, but it's about your connection, it's about your natural talent in that area. So I would say to people, once again, find out exactly what is it. Don't feel and talk down to yourself and say, I've made a mistake. There are no mistakes in life. So just say to yourself, okay, I think I've experimented this now. As an engineer, it's fine. I want to try something else. But what is it that I want to try? That's where now I get to help people to understand what is it that I do well. What is it that I'm passionate about? Passion to me does not come first. Your natural abilities, they come first. And then your passion comes. Even if at times your passion is not there, you learn to be passionate about something. You've heard of the saying as well when you go to weddings, where they are asking the bride, there's a bride and the groom, they ask the bride and say, tell us, how did you guys meet and what happened? And the bride will say, I didn't love this groom. I didn't love this guy. Whenever he approached me, I felt like running away and things like that. But he says, today, he's the love of my life. Today,
Why is that? How does that happen?
My world revolves around him. Now, the reason why that is the case is I think it shows us as humans that the more you spend time around someone, and the more you change the thinking, because your friends were saying, oh, he's not a bad dude after all. I mean, he's got a good heart. I mean, just give him an ear, man. Just give a poor man an ear. Just give him a chance, you know. And then he started giving that person a chance. And one thing led to the next. They didn't love the person, but that's why they say you learn to love a person. Same thing in careers. You learn to love something, but you must have a natural talent for it. You must have the natural ability.
We're moving too far ahead because I still want to explore that sort of scenario.
Yes.
You call it prototyping.
Yes, prototyping.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the first step, the person has to make sure that they familiarize themselves with the environment that they are going to be in.
Yes, that they want to be in. Because when you talk about prototyping, let's look at, for an example, you can't just build a house without a model. You firstly need to have a drawing plan, a house plan. That model, that will tell you, oh, this is how it looks like. Even cars are designed like, you don't just go for mass production. At first, you want to see how is this thing going to look like aesthetically. You need to look at it. You test this thing and see. That is what is called the model. Once you have a model, or in engineering, it's called also the prototype. That prototype, it gives you to say, okay, this thing is going to look like this. It's going to be this long. It's going to be this wide. So in careers and in life, prototyping means that you spend time there trying out even on weekends with a person without you even getting paid. You want to learn this with this person, from this person. You go where they go, they fill in the books, this is what we do, as they do this thing from A to Z. And then after that, you will have an honest conversation with yourself. Is this really what I want? Not what you read from a newspaper, or you are doing it one day, maybe in a month. No, you set aside important time for you and spend time with that person the whole day, for weeks or for months. Then you know that if you have been with that person for 3 months, for 4 months, that excitement will either increase or it will decrease, because the reality will tell you to say, this is not you. Maybe you may be good at this in terms of your thinking, but your personality is not suited for this.
When I asked whether by that you are gravitating towards the area of association, you said no. Is it an issue of association, or is association a different concept? Because you do say there's power of association.
Yes, there's power in association. So when I talk about this power in association, what I mean is that when you want to change your life, learn to identify those people who are living what you want to live. Because the people that you have around you will determine how you do things. That's why I love Sidney Poitier. He said, when you take a walk with someone, something unspoken happens. You either adjust to their pace or they adjust to your pace. Now the question is, whose pace have you adjusted to? When you talk about association, once again, you look at people who start even spinning cars, in our townships and in places, it's because they are associated with those people who are doing those things. When you spend more time with someone who is doing something, you end up behaving like them.
Birds of the same feather.
Absolutely. What happens is we don't teach our kids how to do things, but they go out and play with other kids at school. They play with them, day in and day out. And then one time you hear your child maybe using a swear word or something, and you say, but where did you get that? Because I didn't teach you. It is the power of association. It can be negative and it can also be positive. So that's where it comes in now, association. So if you want to be something, for an example, if you want to improve your life, if you want to be an author, now spend more time with authors. Don't just listen on radio, to the radio. Go spend time with them. What is happening? If one day you want to be a doctor, spend time with doctors. If you want to be a lawyer, spend time with lawyers. Get to learn their ways, get to learn their language, get to learn their perspectives. Because when you do that, then you will realize and you'll pick up the truth.
I see what you're doing there. You're speaking to intentionality.
Absolutely. Be intentional. You can't just be passive. You can't just be casual. When it's what you say, when you're casual in your life, you end up being a casualty.
Yes.
You don't want that.
Yes.
You don't want to be a casualty. You want to be intentional. You want to make sure that whatever you do it with intention. You are being deliberate. You've got to be deliberate, because if you're not, then you just hope. Things are just going to happen by default instead of by design.
And I'm pleased that you mentioned Sidney Poitier.
Yeah.
People like Denzel Washington
Yes.
learned at his feet, didn't
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, for you to do one thing that I just want to add as well, if you want to change even your career and want to improve in life, you need to have a coach. You know, Sir Isaac Newton said, if I've seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And that's such a powerful thing. And I said as well, you cannot see the picture if you're in a frame. You need someone who's outside of that frame.
Hang
who
on.
will look at
Hang
this
on. Let's
and make a
explore
difference.
that.
Yes.
You cannot see the picture if you're in the frame.
Yes.
What does
if
it
you
mean?
think of a picture,
That's
picture.
profound.
The picture is framed.
Yes.
The picture is inside the frame. It cannot see itself whether it's skew. It cannot see itself whether it's too low or it's too high. You need someone who's outside of the picture, who's going to look at it and say, wow, this is a bit skew. This is full of dust. Let me dust it off. Let me do this. So you cannot see yourself. You need someone who's going to look at you from a distance and say, you know what, you can improve on this. That's the reason why, therefore, as coaches, a coach is a person who sees something that you cannot see by yourself.
But tell me
A coach is
works.
a person
Tell me how
who
it
can
works.
take you to a place that you cannot take yourself, to, by yourself.
So, one, I suppose, is a high-powered professional.
Yeah.
Where do they go for coaching? Who do they approach?
Now, there are two things here, and people mostly mix them up. There's coaching and there's mentorship, mentoring. There's coaching and mentoring.
Or there's a difference?
There's a difference. So when you talk about a mentor, for example, as a legal person, to get a mentor, you need someone who's been there, someone who's high up there in a legal fraternity. And then will be telling you, this is how you deal with these issues. This is how you read this, interpret this piece of law. This is how you do this.
That's mentorship.
Now, that's mentorship, because this is the person who's been there. He's walking with you, he's holding your hand, taking you through the ropes, saying this is how it's done. But a coach, on the other hand, is someone where I come in. For example, I've got an engineering background, and I've done I've done different things. I've written books, I'm a coach now. So a doctor comes to me, or a medical practitioner. He says, I want to be the best in what I do. I want to be the best person. I want to be the best human being. Now, when you talk at a human level, not at a specific field's level.
I hear you.
Now I come and I say, to be the best in what you do, you need to make sure that your diet is right. You need to make sure that you sleep right. You need to make sure that you associate with the right people. You need to make sure that you plan your life. This is how you set your goals. Now, that is not career specific.
I see.
It's now about life in general. So
how do you structure that? Do you structure it per session, or how do you do that? Are they supposed to come see you, say, every week?
It depends, but I don't really work on every week. Normally I give people about a month, because after a session, you have some assignment. You've got some things to go and do and implement, because, habits take time to change. You can't just learn something now. That's why our schools have actually somehow failed us, because they've dumped us with theory and they continued. You only studied to pass exams. But when it comes to life, now it's something different. There are not just exams that you memorize something, you do it. You've got to solve a problem based on where you are, and what worked yesterday may not work today. So you've got to continually keep on moving. So that's why you need someone who's going to ask you difficult questions, someone who's going to challenge you. Like I was talking about there, if you look at the likes of, Jack Welch of GE, he was coached by Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker is known as the father of modern management. He's the guy who spoke about the 21st century as the era of 3 C's. He said it will be an era of accelerated change, overwhelming complexity, and tremendous competition. So these things came from someone
Say them again.
who has been there.
3 C's.
Yes, the 3 C's. Accelerated change, overwhelming complexity,
And competition.
and tremendous competition. We are now living in a global village. You've got to be so good for you to compete at a global.
He was
spot on, and it was in the 70s when he said that. He was one of the futurists. When you look at the likes of, you look at Michael Jordan, he was coached by Phil Jackson. And Phil Jackson also coached LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. You look at the likes of, Muhammad Ali, he was coached by Angelo Dundee. And you look at the likes of Mike Tyson, he was coached by Cas D'Amato. Yes. And you go and you look at things like, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He had to fly from the US to come to South Africa, in Cape Town in particular, to meet the guy by the name of Reginald Park, because he wanted to be the Mr. Universe.
Yes.
And then you look at Oprah Winfrey. Yes. He had Mary Duncan and you had Maya Angelou in his corner.
Yes.
And you carry on and you look at the likes of, you look at Alexander the Great.
Absolutely.
He was coached by Socrates.
Yes.
And Socrates was coached by who? By Plato.
Yeah.
And Plato, you look at them, this thing goes on and it goes to, you talk about Socrates, you're talking about Plato, you're talking about, so it means this thing, one coached the other one and the other one coached. So you cannot do it by yourself. And you look at the likes of Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. He was coached by Bill Bowerman.
Yes.
You look at these people, and I was coached by Les Brown, and I continue to be coached. I've got mentors and I've got coaches. A mentor helps me to get into this specific thing. The reason why I worked with Les Brown is because I wanted to be one of the great speakers in the world. So the power of association, associate with those people who are already what you aspire to be. Now, that will actually help you to see things differently. And I just love that. So if you want to be the best and you want to be competitive in your field, get yourself a mentor and a coach, because you can't do it by yourself. You can't. That's the reason why, therefore, Sir Isaac Newton was saying what I said earlier, to say, if I've seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. And for me, how my life changed was when I realized, one of my quotes, and I talk about this, and I say, it was only when I discovered that the cage that I was trapped in was made out of thoughts. Not out of bricks.
That's profound.
Not out of steel, but out of thoughts. So it means when I change my thoughts, I flatten this cage. It doesn't exist. So the cage that we are trapped in is constructed by your thoughts. When you change your thoughts, you change your life. So many people are stuck. They are victims of beliefs. They are victims of habits. They are victims of their ideas, ideologies, because somebody said to them, this is how it must be done, but they never applied themselves. You find professionals saying, oh, Professor so-and-so said in 1970s. Now we are in 2023. This is the 21st century. How applicable is that in today's construct? And then people are saying they're educated. They've got MBAs, people have got this. Oh, Professor so-and-so said, but what are you saying? So for me as Veli Ndaba, that's what I do in my talks. That's what I do in my workshops. I help people to challenge themselves to think outside of what the professor said. Because the next generation, what will it say you said? You are busy saying, Professor so-and-so said, but what will the next generation say you said? How will they quote you? Will they quote you by saying, oh, he used to say Professor so-and-so said? Or they will say, you said. That's the question. So,
probably the most important thing that you're saying here, and that I need to keep uppermost in my mind,
yes,
is the fact that whatever we do, whatever we think, is a function of something that comes from the inside.
Absolutely.
Forget the outside now. It might be rainy outside. It might, you may be poor. You may be born in Soweto instead of Sandton.
Yes.
But what happens from inside,
yes,
is what would change the circumstance.
Absolutely. And your commitment. When you decide something, in my first book, You Are Born to Win, I've shared some words that I think for me also are powerful. I've written so many things. I've written about so many things. But these words about success, they say, if you want a thing bad enough to go out and fight for it, to work day and night for it, and to give up your time, your peace, and your sleep for it, and if all that you dream and scheme is about it, and life just seems useless and worthless without it, if you will gladly sweat for it, fret for it, and plan for it, and lose all your terror of the opposition for it, and if you'll simply go after the thing that you want with all your strength, your capacity, your sagacity, your faith, hope, and confidence, and stern pertinacity, and if neither cold, poverty, gout, nor sickness of the body and brain can keep you away from that thing that you want, and if dark and grim you beseech and beset it, with the help of God, you will get it. So for me, what is it that you're willing to give up your sleep, to give up your friends, and to give up your time for it? And if you find that, you'll be unstoppable. So that's exactly that. So if you really want to be counted amongst the best in the world, you've got to stand up for something, because if you don't stand up for something, you'll fall for anything.
Big brother, I want us to talk about the books.
Thank you, sir.
You have 5 books.
But 5 books.
One is still in the mint.
It's coming in a few weeks.
Yes.
It's going to be out, yes.
In a few weeks, right?
Yes, in a few weeks.
The Neuroscience of Effective Leadership.
The Neuroscience of Effective Leadership. I help this, as I say, I help a lot of leaders and I help a lot of teams, how to build effective teams, how to think differently, because you need to talk about that. Yes, we talk about finances, we talk about laws, we talk about this, but if you don't understand how this thing works, it's like what? If, for example, you get into your car and then the lights won't switch on. Then you phone a mechanic and you say, hey, my lights won't switch on. And he says to you, check your tires. What do you say? Check your tire pressure. It doesn't make sense, right?
Disjuncture.
Yeah, how are the lights connected with that? You are only saying that because you understand how the car works.
It's true.
But there are so many people who are telling us to check our car tires when our lights won't come on. And they tell us all these things because we don't understand how the brain works. We just take it as holy cows. Oh, no, that's fine. So now I'm teaching people about the car, that there's something called the engine. There's something called the motor. There's something called the radiator. And if there's a problem with your aircon, the radiator is faulty. If there's something wrong with the motor, it means the car won't even move. So the brain is about that. I'm teaching you about the engine so that you are able to look at that.
There's still more to discuss. Still more episodes to discuss all these things. So this is the book that is coming up, the Neuroscience of Effective Leadership.
Yes.
But there's 4 other books that are already published.
Absolutely. I'll take you through them in a sequence. The first one was You Are Born to Win. You Are Born to Win. This is the first book, You Are Born to Win. So this book is about helping people understand that, hey, you are not made by your circumstances. You are not made by by where you were born. You are not made by your family.
You're born.
You are born.
You're born to win.
All you need to do is to call it forth. You've got to claim that. Then the second book that I published was Your Dream is Calling You.
Your dream is calling you.
Your dream is calling you.
Man.
Every day. And it comes back to that soft voice that is deep down within yourself that you are ignoring because of the noises around you. And if you get that book at the back, it will tell you, as you can see, that if you read that at the back,
I'll tell you what it says. We have many missed calls in our lives because of the noise around us.
Absolutely. There's so many missed calls. And those missed calls are because
you can't hear them properly.
Around. You
There's
can't
noise.
hear your phone. And you check it. How often have you checked your phone at some point when you're in a noisy place?
Man, how are you
can't
coming,
even hear.
How are you coming up with these gems? We have many missed calls in our lives because the noise around us.
Absolutely. So your friends may be a noise in your life. Your family may be a noise in your life. That television that you are forever watching may be a noise in your life that cause you to miss that connection and for you to connect with that voice. So that's the second book.
Yes.
And then the third one was switch on your personal power. Because you may know now that you are born to win. You may know now that, okay, your dream is calling you. But because the lights are off, that's why there's a switch there. If you come into a house the power is there. But if the switch is off, you'll never get to see if the power is there. You've got to switch on.
Do you know what
the power is
Do you know what the sleeve is saying? Now is the time to release the greatness that lies dormant in you.
Because we all have greatness. It's not maybe. So people shouldn't be asking a question of, am I talented? The question is not, am I talented?
You are talented.
You are. The question that you should be asking is, how am I talented? Now, how you are talented, you may be talented in sales, you may be talented in engineering, you may be talented in environment. Like when you go out and look at things like botany, you may be talented in things like, like dancing. So it's not about whether you're talented or not, it's how you are talented. You want to go out there in life and look for the how. So that's what I talk about. And then the fourth one is, set your soul on fire. Because without the fire in you, you cannot cook anything. You need some fire for you to cook anything. So to cook, you need some fire. But if the fire is too low, nothing's going to get cooked. You've got to increase the fire. But if it's too much, it's going to burn the food. So you want to make sure that the fire is in a good, it's good enough for you to do that. So all these things, you need someone who's going to hold you accountable in a form of a mentor and a coach. You need to develop yourself, read books, go out there, attend seminars, go attend workshops, go attend those conferences, because leaders are readers and readers are leaders. If you don't read,
you cannot lead.
You cannot lead. And people will talk about the power of the lead. The power of the lead, it says, if you look at the pot and the lid is too low, all the content inside are going to suffocate. So as a leader, you want to raise up that lid so that the contents are going to be able to jump up and down freely and grow. So as a leader of your family, as a leader of your dreams, your own dreams, and as a leader of people, what kind of a leader are you? Are you suffocating your dreams? Are you suffocating your family? Are you suffocating your employees or your team members? That's the question that I leave with leaders. So I help them in transforming from mental darkness to mental light. Because mental light is the place where we need to operate from.
Absolutely. Where do professionals and aspirant professionals get these books?
These books are available in our offices.
Yes.
And
in
people
Alberton.
that need that in Alberton, and people who really want them, they just reach us via our website.
Yes.
And then they can call us as well. Our details are there. And then we are able to courier them. Others, they come and get them and collect them, because it's always nice to come in this part of town just to get your books. And
are you on social media?
Definitely. When you go and look for Veli Ndaba, the NeuroEngineer, go and Google Veli Ndaba. I'm on Instagram or on TikTok as well.
Yeah.
So Instagram, TikTok.
You're keeping up with
on
the times.
Facebook, absolutely on Facebook. And we're so big on LinkedIn as well. Make a lot of contributions in terms of how people can become the best versions of themselves. Because if you are not able to compete, then unfortunately, there's going to be a problem. And someone once said, if you do not know what your competitive advantage is, don't go out there and try to compete, because you're going to become a laughing stock. So yes, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Ladies and gentlemen, my big brother, Veli Ndaba. This is the Professionals Network podcast with myself, Theo Mapheto. We like what we say, and we say what we like. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Thank you.